Sexiness and purity can coexist. Attraction and purity can coexist. Beauty and purity can coexist. Anything that highlights the beauty of a woman with physically can coexist with the idea or the belief of purity and innocence. You do not have to take one out to enjoy the other. To maintain purity, you do not have to suppress your sexiness. To maintain purity, you do not have to suppress your attraction. To maintain purity and innocence, you do not have to suppress your beauty. However, in our society as women, we have been taught that our attraction, our beauty, our sexiness is the cause for a lot of the issues that have happened in society in regards to rape. And the conversation around modesty is always happening, especially within the Christian society, where women are constantly taught on how they should be dressing. And one scripture that is used to justify the emphasis that is placed on women's dressing is the scripture that talks about how to not try to be a stumbling block for another person or to another person. I'll put that scripture up there so you know what I'm referencing. But they use that to kind of like teach women, the church uses that to teach women that, you know, you have to make sure that you're dressed apart, that you're dressed in a way that covers yourself so you're not a stumbling block to your brother or to the other men in church. The problem that this has created in our society is that it has missed an opportunity, or it keeps missing the opportunity of actually addressing the root problem that has been apparent within many generations and for many years. And the problem is not how the woman is dressed. The problem is not the nakedness of a woman. The problem is not the bodies of women. The problem is actually the fact that we as a society have failed in teaching men how to view a woman's body in a way that does not objectify them, in a way that does not that is not degrading. But men have been taught in society that if a woman's attractive or gives off that sexy kind of energy, they're not innocent, they're not pure, or you can't view them as innocent or pure. And then that gives them right of passage to then objectify women who are presented in such a way. Rather than actually learning the truth that sexiness and purity can coexist, that you can look at a woman, appreciate their beauty, appreciate how they're presented, but also acknowledge the fact that they can still maintain their innocence even whilst presented as such. And this goes as far as even if a woman is dressed in a way that's provocative, in a way that is kind of desperate for attention, because that type of energy is very, you can spot it. When a woman is dressed in a way that screams attention, like give me attention, rather than dressing in a way that actually beautifies them and allows their physique and their essence to be embraced rather than trying to do too much. You can spot that energy. You can spot when someone is being too desperate for attention, because that whatever we don't work on in our hearts will always flow into how we present ourselves externally. And the energies are very different. The energies between a confident woman who is confident in showing her skin and a woman who is not confident but wants to gain attention, the energies are very, very different. However, the point of the matter is, even if a woman is in that state of desperation for attention, that should never be the reason why a man should then objectify that woman, because all of a sudden her innocence is removed because she's desperate. Innocence should always maintain, irrespective of how that woman feels inside or how her heart posture is at that particular point in time. And so as a society, we have placed so much emphasis on teaching the women on how to dress, how to be, how to express themselves, and to suppress their sexiness, to suppress their beauty, to suppress everything that makes a woman, to suppress all of that, every single side and aspect of the woman's essence, to suppress it, in order for us to be accepted, in order for us to be portrayed as pure. But then that doesn't give the full capacity of a woman's essence whilst also portraying their purity. It doesn't make sense why sexiness and attraction should be removed in order for a woman to embrace their purity. It doesn't make sense, because it was all created by one God. All of this was created by God. All of this, a woman's body, the way that a woman's body is, it is art. It is the way that God created them. So why should our bodies now be portrayed as something that is negative when it is expressed in a type of way, when it is being dressed up in a type of way, when it is being presented in a type of way that is attractive, that is sexy, that is appealing to the eyes? Anyways, I'm talking about this because this is something I've personally experienced as someone who was married, or who got married. I'm no longer in a relationship, but someone who experienced that marriage lifestyle also experienced the expectation that comes with being, I guess, a wife, especially a wife that is of faith. I can tell you right now that there are women out there right now who have suppressed those amazing qualities or amazing versions of themselves, the sexiness, the beauty, the attraction. Why? Because they believe that in order for them to be portrayed or to be seen as pure and modest, that they cannot allow society to view them in that way, in that aspect. And that, unfortunately, that does play a detrimental role in the satisfaction of your relationship with your husband. If you decide to remove a certain part of yourself, or to suppress a certain part of yourself that makes up who you are, your essence as a person, to take that away in order for you to maintain purity, that does play a role in the satisfaction of your marriage, regardless of what you've been programmed to believe, regardless of how your husband has been programmed to believe about purity. That will impact the satisfaction of your marriage. I'm someone that I spent almost a year without wearing makeup, and this was all through the leading of God. I spent a year without wearing makeup, spent a year with just wearing long stuff, almost a year of just wearing long stuff. And the reason why God allowed me to go through this period of my life wasn't because he was trying to teach me that wearing a short dress or wearing makeup or a short dress was somewhat bad, but it was to draw me to my heart and the problems and the issues that were in my heart in regards to how I saw myself physically. And so that's the thing that people miss when, I guess sometimes that is the problem that women miss sometimes when we talk about beauty or attraction or sexiness, is that a lot of the ways that we present ourselves really do reflect how we feel internally. And I told you before that there is an energy that is given off when you don't feel adequate within yourself, when you don't feel secure within yourself, and you feel like you need to gain that, validation from an outside source. And from that period where I was stripped off makeup and stripped off enjoying the way God created me, enjoying allowing myself to express myself in how I would usually express myself, that allowed me to actually go and dig deep and look at the heart and realize that for a lot of years I've had issues with my body. Why? Because when I was younger, I was a little overweight. No, I wouldn't say overweight. I was just really chunky. Chunkier than most of the kids that were my age. But I was always told that, I've got a big body, and that caused an insecurity within myself. So I never, even when I got to high school, my body changed drastically. I never got to enjoy what my body was looking like during that time, because I always thought that I was so big. And then when I look at the photos of how I look like back then, I'm in awe, because I'm like, what the flip? Your body looks so good. I looked amazing. But it's good now, because I don't look back thinking I wish I had I wish I could have that body back. I look back embracing and just admiring where I was during that time, whilst also loving the body that I have now. I've had 2 kids, by the way, so my body has changed a lot since having kids. But again, it goes down to internal work, the work that I did within, I guess, the last 3 years of my life, where I've looked at my heart posture, where I've partnered with God and looked at my heart posture, has allowed me to clear out limitations and just negative perception or ideas of bodies and nakedness and sexiness and all of that stuff. And I'm just in a place right now where I feel the most free in how I express myself physically, in how I look at modesty, in how I look at just expressing myself. There are a lot of things that I am getting into, like dancing and music and all of that stuff. And a lot of the things that I know that I'm going to step into are things that are they're not considered modest. They don't fall under the criteria of worldly understanding of what modesty actually is, or the faith-based understanding of what modesty actually is. They reflect my true journey and my true understanding, or my understanding of what modesty really is. If you don't learn to do things within the posture of love, in how you dress, in how you act, in how you treat people, then doesn't matter how good it looks outwardly, it's meaningless when your posture and your heart isn't flowing with love first. Doesn't matter whatever you're doing. It does not matter. Anything that you're doing, whether that is considered good in the eyes of man, does not matter. If you don't learn how to love yourself, how to love people properly, then you'll never ever experience the freedom that comes from real love, from true love. And you'll always be tied down to the ideas and the belief system that the world has developed, even if those belief systems are centered or have been created based on scripture, or things that people have pulled out from the Bible and have lacked and have not been able to balance out properly. Things that people have pulled out from the Bible as a means of, as a way to kind of suppress and oppress women, rather than allowing women and the full essence of a woman to thrive in this world, whilst also teaching men how to love and value a woman's body, or a woman's essence, or a woman's being, without objectifying them, and without taking away any part of them, any part of their natural nature, their natural essence. I hope that makes sense. But a good thing for you to reflect on is, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but in the Garden of Eden, you have to remind yourself that Adam and Eve were naked in the Garden of Eden. Their nakedness never for once offended God. It was only a problem after they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That is when their innocence all of a sudden became shame. They then felt shame because of their nakedness, whereas before their nakedness was never. There was nothing shameful about their nakedness, about walking around in the garden naked. And you also have to ask yourself, like, God was still able to freely communicate with them. So do you think the same God that was in that garden before, that witnessed their nakedness, has somehow changed over the course of the years, over the thousands of years that have gone by, or hundreds of years? I don't know when these people were in the garden, but over the hundreds of years that have gone by, do you think somehow God has just then all of a sudden changed? I think people have just got to understand that the same way that you cannot box God is the same way that you cannot box humans. If we want to be more like God, if we want to live just like God, if we want to think just like God, why do we box other people and why do we box ourselves? Why do we not allow ourselves to fully express ourselves in the way that we have been placed here to express, to be? Why are we living under the constructs and the belief systems of society, even if those foundations have been built by people who identify as people of faith? You have to ask yourself these questions. And another thing that you should also, on top of that, you should also ask yourself is that if nakedness was so bad for us, why then did God tell Prophet Isaiah to walk around the world for 3 whole years naked? And then there are women in society now who can't even go into the presence of God without adjusting everything that they're wearing, and like without feeling like they need to adjust everything that they're wearing to be acceptable to God, because they feel like their nakedness is somewhat a bad thing. God sees you whilst you're going to the toilet, whilst you're having a shower. Why then cover yourself up in that particular time, or feel like you need to change yourself in order to feel accepted by God, or to feel pure in front of God? Your nakedness is pure, is innocent. Anyways, there's another one. I don't know if I have time. Okay. Anyways, let me know if you want me to speak more on this, but this is just my take, and I am so passionate about this because this is what I truly believe this to my core. And I know,